Okay. I'm Dr. Serrano from English and Modern Languages.
Mm-hmm.
And I am an ally.
Uh-huh.
I guess I consider myself heterosexual, but very supportive of the LGBTQ community.
Alrighty. First off, what you mentioned the phrase ally. Could you define that word a little bit better?
That's a good question, actually. Well, I would say that personally, an ally would be, just the meaning of the word, a friend. A friend. I would like to know those who are part of the LGBTQ community know they have a friend in me. Know that they're always welcome to my office. It's a safe zone. Students, especially, they might not be accepted at home, but I accept them as their professor and friend and ally.
Yeah, and just in case somebody out there might not know what heterosexual means, would you care to define that?
All right. Well,
or at least in relation to you.
Okay, it means I'm, I guess, a cisgender woman, which means, well, first of all, I'm a cisgender and heterosexual. So cisgender just means that we talked about performance. I perform as a woman. I'm attracted to the opposite sex. And also my identity is woman. So a lot of things go into that, right? What's your identity? What's your sex? It's a woman. What do you perform, right? I'm wearing a dress and I wear makeup, and I'm attracted to
patriarchy.
Right, exactly. But not everyone.
Yeah.
There's a mix. Some people can be perform as a male, be biologically female, be attracted to other females, and identify as female. It's just it just depends on the individual.
What is coming out to you?
What's coming out? That's a good question. I would say I'm prepping my lecture on Walt Whitman tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
So for him, it was to publish, and let the world at large know that he's attracted to other males, and he's considered the first American poet to come out, and it was through his writing. So I would say, in a public way, you let people know that you are homosexual, although that's unfair as well, because heterosexuals don't have to come out, and that's something that we've talked about in some of my classes.
I don't assume you've ever experienced the coming out.
Right? No, as a heterosexual, you don't. But shouldn't it? If we really are equal, right? If we think of people as equal, if one day, actually, I saw this recently in a show, that one day, if we lived in an ideal world, nobody has to come out, right? It doesn't matter what your sexuality is, and it's not, you don't have to announce it. Yeah, right, exactly.
It's what it's. In relation to coming out, what was your first experience with it?
My first experience, I'd say I grew up very conservative, my parents were Pentecostal, so very religious, and I did think that being homosexual was a sin. So in high school, I had several friends who were with other same-sex couples. I had a couple of them, and they felt nervous telling me because they knew what I thought about that. And then when I found out, I stopped talking to them because that's how I grew up. I grew up thinking that. So I would say in high school I was not accepting at all.
What changed?
College, right? College. Actually, once I was 18, I told my parents, I saw a lot of things that were wrong with their way of thinking. And I went to college and I met more people, diverse people. I had gay friends in college. There was a gay club in El Paso because that's where I went to school. And exposure to different people. And a college education will do that too. You read about Greek culture, right? And you read different gay writers, and it opened my eyes.
Yeah. Did you ever go back and contact those people who had came out to you during high school?
Actually, I wouldn't say I severed ties with them. They were still my friends. But then it's still to this day, I would consider them friends on Facebook, maybe, right? And I would say my last couple of years of high school, I was unaccepting of them. But as soon as I got to college, I said within the first year, I started being more accepting. So I actually still talk to some of my friends in high school who are gay, and we're on good terms.
Speaking of, like, okay, so I assume that whenever this, like, person or persons did come out to you, it was in a more, like, private setting.
Right, it was.
Yeah, and so earlier we were talking about how coming out is more, like, at least in the definition that you gave, a more public statement.
Right.
How would you describe people who only come out in private, or who only come out in public but not in that private sphere? Like, where do you put the separation, or if there even is one, between the private and the public identity?
Right. That's a really good question too. And again, I always, if as a cisgender heterosexual woman, I'm in a position of power. So I have no right to tell someone from an oppressed group, this is the right way to do it, this isn't the right way to do it. So I don't have a place. I can't tell someone who's not out at home and they're out at school, you should be consistent and be out completely. That's not my place.
So we already kind of talked about how your perspective as a heterosexual person has changed. How is it being a professor?
All right. Well,
like, I mean,
what
I mean is, like, why do you think people put so much trust in you to open up about this stuff whenever they might not at, like, home or between their friends? Like, what separates that coming out trust? Like, I trust you to not out me, but I do trust you enough to tell you and share that with you as, like, a student to a professor.
Actually, it's I don't know, it's something that I think about and I take very seriously. Like, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I do the wrong thing? But I feel like a lot of students I've dealt with, they don't feel like they can come out to the adult role models, and I'm not calling myself a role model because that's kind of scary to think that I'm a role model. But I realize that sometimes I'm the only adult they've come out to, right? Like someone their parents' age, right?
And you're very open about, like, being somebody who's LGBT friendly, like,
right?
It's all over your
I want people to know. Yeah. I want people to know because you never know what struggles students are going through, and I've heard a lot of difficult situations with my students and their parents who don't accept them.
What was the first time that somebody, like, put you in that position where they're like, I can't come out to, like, my parents, but I have to tell someone?
Actually, a lot of it has to do with financial struggles. I've had students say, I had to move out of my parents' house, right? I'm in college and I'm struggling financially, and I came out to them and they said I couldn't, if I was going to be homosexual or choose that quote unquote lifestyle, oh, that word irks me, I couldn't live under their roof. So they had to leave their home, get an apartment. Maybe they were working part-time, they had to work full-time. And I've had students not come to class, and I've asked, hey, is everything okay? You haven't been to class, and it's that they have to work, they have to be financially independent when they weren't expecting to be at as underclassmen.
Wow,
yeah,
that's a
underclass.
lot.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've never been in that position.
Yeah, I mean,
was that the first time, like, because you said that students have come to you, like, telling you, like, I can't, like, this is what I'm going through right now. Was that the first time you heard of somebody, like, experiencing that, or at least, like, in a way where you could see, I guess? Or is it just, like, that was, like, you've been exposed to that before? Like, the struggles of being not straight?
I think the struggle became more apparent when I became a professor, again, more of an authority figure and a quote-unquote adult figure, because when I was in, let's say, undergrad, grad school, right, in my 20s, I didn't know of people who came out to their parents and they were in the same situation, but we were all we're students, right, in the same boat, right, same situation. But then I started sympathizing more, right? What if that had happened to me when I was their age? And as an adult, what can I do? And the answer is, right, I can't provide counseling, right? I'm not a trained counselor. All I can do is point students in certain directions. So if they feel they've been discriminated based on their sexual orientation, I would direct them to the Title IX office. Which is where? Which is in the UC, right? In the UC, kind of UC across from the Veterans Affairs Center, Multicultural Center too. So that's the Title IX office, or counseling too. I'm not a counselor. It's not like and I've had also students struggle with anxiety, depression, and there's a lot of overlap between that, right? Oh yes, definitely. And actually I can not counsel on them on that, but I have anxiety and depression as well. So, and I'm open about it too. So I'm not going to give them therapy, but I'll tell them to go to the counseling center, right? It's free and everyone should go. So that's kind of where my roles change. But I repeat, I do not provide counseling, legal counsel. I have no idea. I would say, I know it sounds a little bit cheesy, but what we do is study humanities, the human condition. So I think part of who I am is being able to sympathize with others who aren't in the same situation I'm in, but that's what we do. We study humanity, and we have to understand that people have struggles that are unlike our own, and we have to sympathize with them.
Right, like it's just this change to like being like triumphant rather than the like rebel like LGBT.
Right.
Like, it's become a point of pride. Like, yes. Yeah. Why don't you I'm sorry, I don't know when exactly these things happen.
When do you think it changed?
Yeah,
right?
When do you think it changed? And like
that's a really good question too. I do, when I teach, I study social justice, certain movements, right? So civil rights movement, the United Farm Workers movement, and we in this course LGBTQ.
Yeah.
So I think there's pivotal moments in history. Stonewall riots, 1969. Yes. Would be a turning point. So this is when...
Didn't that the anniversary of that pass not too long ago?
50 years this past summer. Past summer. And then I would say that's a pivotal point. And then the legalization of gay marriage. I think that was another turning point. And that's when we started really using that phrase, love wins, right? When the Supreme Court ruled gay marriage legal. But there's always, right? Yeah. I should see several linings into everything, but I feel we get too comfortable sometimes. And there's still extreme prejudice against members of the LGBTQ community. So we can't be comfortable in saying that love wins. Yeah. There's
some idealization of it, because I do know whenever the Stonewall riots anniversary passed, I was being like, oh, I didn't know that this happened on this day. Did you? And people would be like, I don't even know what that is.
Right. And we forget.
Because there is that, because LGBT is associated with Pride and Pride Month and all the parades and that stuff. Right. And a lot of people, forget or don't even, have exposure to that kind of, history.
Yeah. History, definitely. And they just think, they see Pride. It looks like a fun parade, right? They can join, but they don't know the struggle behind and the history behind the significance of Pride.
Yeah. Right. Oh, the question was, what does that mean? I know as cheesy as it sounds, but, what does love wins to you?
What is love?
What would be what is the ideal and where are we currently?
Oh, wow, that's a tough question, right? I think, currently, currently we're in a place where there are laws that protect LGBTQ members.
How well would you say that they're enforced?
This is where, not always very well. I would say this is true of also other movements, right? So especially if we're considering hate crimes, these are hate crimes against people of color, people based on their gender orientation, sexuality, right? Their and it's, I think we're in a place where legally individuals feel protected, but culturally, socially, we are not there
Still
yet.
got room to grow.
We have so much room to grow because laws can change and people's attitudes don't change very easily. So we had the civil rights movement. We had Brown versus the Board of Education, right, in the 50s. And where are we today, right, in terms of race relations in the United States?
Insert nervous laughter.
Right, yes, exactly. And I think that's where we are with social movements. First laws change, but for attitudes to change, that could take hundreds of years. Yeah, I know that sounds very cynical, but but we're getting there. Yeah. Well, and actually, I shouldn't leave this in a dark place, right? I think when I've been teaching here 12 years, so when I first...
have you seen a change on campus?
Yes, definitely.
So whenever you first started.
When I first started, I remember we had an organization, LGBTQ organization, and I won't mention any names, but let's say a certain administrator at the time said, okay, we can have this organization, but use a name that doesn't reveal what it is. So
but
it was
an organization.
But it's an organization. So the organization's name was HERO, Helping Educate Regarding Orientation.
Okay.
But there's nothing that says LGBT. And a lot of students didn't know.
Erasure of, just the phrase LGBT.
Right. Well, I mean, at least, and actually we had GSA, Gay Straight Alliance, right? We had that for some time. Now we have Rams Plus. But specifically, this administrator told us to choose a name that wouldn't scream, right? This is an LGBT organization, because we wanted to be a little bit of tight-lipped about it.
More queer than how.
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought, wow, it's scary to think that. Also, I was brand new, and there were several faculty members who wanted to be a sponsor of the organization. And a certain administrator said, only tenured faculty can sponsor. I was sponsor of our honor society as an assistant professor. I didn't have tenure. I could be sponsor of any student organization if I wanted to.
Did you choose that one?
I couldn't. They said, the administrator said, if you were not tenured, this organization is too controversial for you as a young faculty member. You could get in trouble.
What was your reaction to that?
Floored, right? I was shocked. But there were a couple colleagues who were tenured and really did want to be sponsors, and they eventually did become sponsors over the organization. But I just remember the narrative was for your own protection, right? As the young faculty, you could be fired. You won't when you're up for promotion. This is and
this is just the danger of being a heterosexual professor trying to speak on behalf,
right? Or just anyone trying to speak on behalf of the LGBT organization. So that's changed now, right? I think,
where does that sit?
Right. I think the Rams Plus is very active. Today, right? If I was an assistant professor without tenure, I could be sponsor, right? I could sponsor the organization. Individuals who weren't, I knew another professor who was a young professor who was assistant professor, and he was sponsor for the organization. So that's changed. And we can be more open. We didn't have Pride when I started, and we started having Pride events. I would say maybe 5 years in, so about halfway through my career here.
Okay, yeah, I was like, how long have you worked?
12 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say things have changed within the last, let's say, even 5 years.
Well, that's a big jump, though.
Yeah, it's big.
Because these things can take agonizingly long.
They can, and at first I was frustrated. and
Where did your frustration lead you? Like, did you...
Right.
Did you do anything?
So I couldn't in an official capacity sponsor the organization, but I would attend events. I would if
That's good.
Right, attend events if any students had questions for. Eventually, I could be like kind of a silent sponsor, right? So that's kind of how students knew that I was involved. But yeah, that's how it's changed. And I'm so glad where we are right now.
Like on just like a campus like perspective on like idealism on just like the LGBT community and how active that is,
right?
And also on just like a cultural level.
Where
would you hope to be, at least like within your lifetime? Where would you want to reach at least?
Well, I think college campuses are. I mean, if we think about the culture of the campus versus the city of San Angelo versus the state of Texas, right? Right. I think the changes happen in smaller communities, and once we accept individuals as smaller communities,
like more rural.
Yeah, it's harder. The bigger the movement gets, the harder it is to reach more people. So I think right now I'm happy with ASU. I'm happy with the
nice. That
culture,
makes me feel
right?
better.
But again, this is me from a position of privilege.
Yeah.
I'm no one to say, like, I don't know what it's like to be gay at an ASU. I don't know. From an outsider's perspective, I think we're quite open, and but I've never experienced prejudice on the campus based on my sexual orientation. Yeah. So again, position of privilege, I can't say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So much
All right.
for speaking up on behalf of other allies and for the community.
I'm happy to, and I'm so excited about this project of yours. All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think that is it.